Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Ryan. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm just holding myself back from just cracking up, Bartek. Oh, it's just things. Just
Ryan, if you laugh into the microphone, I'm gonna have to say silence.
no, no, I did it. Oh, I can't help myself, Bartek. It wasn't my fault. As a mere young boy, I had quite some misadventures. Happy-go-lucky misadventures befell me, and now
you
here
can't
we
help
are.
laughing.
Can't help it.
Just like this will never come up again in the episode, but the Joker.
The Joker baby?
No, the Joaquin Joker.
No, the Joker baby.
That's the Australian Joker.
He was played by an Australian actor. No, we are actually not the Joker baby, but we are spit and polish, likingly because we are always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish. Any information about Poland, Bartek? Your mother went there recently.
Yeah, she did. She had a good time. I haven't been following it, but there's an election coming up. It hasn't already happened, has it? I don't think so.
Don't tell me that your good pal Doodad or whatever his name is.
Well, first of all, my friend was the one that died in the plane crash.
But you were also buddy with
I was one
Doodad.
degree of direction, one degree of separation from Andrzej Duda.
You heard that he's given directions to the leader of Poland, Duda.
The soon to be not anymore. Yeah,
you don't know.
Apparently, their terms.
Is he not running anymore?
Their terms are 5 years, and he's had both. I think there's a 2 limit. Maybe.
Oh, they actually have limits. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they have limits or not, but I know that he's done 2 and that he's not doing another. I forget the details. But
no, not Doodad.
No Duda.
No Duda.
Now he's free to come to Dandenong whenever he wants, and my stepbrother can visit him.
No. Oh well. I'm just looking it up, and I'm not giving you full information, but they're having the debates right now,
okay.
So they're still doing stuff.
That's not happening yet.
It'll be in June, so it's from this point in May to June.
Yeah, we've got 1 week left of May.
So we are not only here to talk about Polish politics, or as we call it, PP, but we're actually here to talk about another PP. Mm-hmm. That's right, Pictures Powwow, in which we host a show where we sit down and have a little powwow about pictures that have been recommended from the person of the week. The person of the week this time, it was my turn.
Yeah, Ryan,
the villain of the podcast, recommended a
that was
villainous.
A thing last week,
yes,
wasn't
it was.
Yeah,
how
yeah.
could you forget the ongoing continuity? How could you question the ongoing continuity of Spit and Polish? This is a fine tradition where we have long-running things. We're almost a decade old, so we are like, what anime would you compare our podcast to, Bartek? What anime would you compare? Are we Bleach?
Did that run for 10 years?
Are we Naruto?
Naruto ran for longer than 10 years. One Piece is still running. Detective Conan is still running.
What about Lupin? That keeps coming back.
Lupin's been going since the 69.
But it stops and has new iterations.
It has parts, yeah.
It has new
I've
iterations.
seen part 1 and 2 in the first 2 films.
Okay, we're that, because we have funky hairstyles, and we just, we love the French as well. Those cowards.
Well, he's half Japanese.
Yeah, well, we love the Japanese half as well. But I recommended a film.
You did?
And then at the end of this discussion, we will hear the listening people's recommendation, because the listening people do recommend movies. And if you have a recommendation out there, listening people, make sure to suggest it. Make sure to hit us up so we can add it to the list. And then after the listening people's, it's Bartek. Back to Bartek.
Yeah.
BB, we call him.
Barbek.
I was talking to my mother-in-law, who's staying with us at the moment, and she said to me, "Oh, is your friend coming today for the podcast?" And I said, "Yes." And then she said, how do you say his name? And then she said a few variations of Bartek, and she did not get it right. She called you Barboy, which I thought was very fun. And she did get tech in there on the second one, but not the bar part. She called you Baytech.
Okay, well,
so
if one of her guesses was Bartłomiej, she was more right than she realized.
But we are talking about the oldest movie we've covered on the podcast so far. The first silent film we've covered on the podcast as well. from 1928,
Yep.
the film The Man Who Laughs, which I wasn't too sure where this where this was made, because looking into it, it's quite an international affair. There's many different people involved. The director and the lead actor are German, but there's American actors in this. There's Irish people. There's a whole cavalcade of
Yeah.
people involved in this, because I walked in just thinking, oh yeah, this is a German movie. It's based on, but it's also based on a Victor Hugo novel, and so it's like there's a
it seems to
whole
be an
array.
American film with an iconic German expressionist director with some German actors and German sets, but it is American, I guess.
Because one of the things I was looking into was people like, oh, this is, you could say, one of the overlooked Universal monsters. I'm like, Universal? Were they involved in this? I didn't see their name pop up, but it's just because it has that American connection, and this has this, the Phantom of the Opera, the type of Hunchback of Notre Dame, like those type of vibes to it. And so people are like, oh, it's a forgotten Universal monster. It's like, what? No, it's like saying the Elephant Man is a Universal monster.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
it's not the same.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning the film that I was thinking throughout this one. I walked into this one completely blind. Basically just remembered snippets of what you told me. Like, I couldn't actually remember if this was an American film with a German director or an actual, like, German expressionist thing, because you mentioned that and, related it to Dr. Caligari.
The lead actor is in both.
Yes. And looking at the poster, and I watched the upload that's on YouTube, and the thumbnail of that, I'm like, oh, okay, is this like a gothic horror in some fashion? So watching it properly, it's like, oh, okay, no, it's a bit more Elephant Man-y, like kind of drama with like little bits of, I guess, some romance in there.
And palace intrigue.
Pardon?
Palace intrigue, because there's also like a lot of like royal affair drama where you have like this person is working for a duchess, and the duchess is trying to undermine the queen, and the queen is trying to do this, and this guy, the lead man who laughs, is the son of this person who defied the king, and it's like, whoa,
yes,
guys, a lot of that.
A whole TV season of,
yes,
relations and heirs and things like that.
So people, if you have not watched The Man Who Laughs, it is easily and readily available online. It's public domain at this point. As of last year. It's a silent movie, so depends what copy you watch, what the music and sounds will be like, so your mileage may vary. There's 2 copies available on YouTube, actually, but I didn't check if they were different to one another or if the music was different, but there are 2 available on there, so that's all for you to take in. The plot of this is it's both simple and complex.
Yeah.
It's the story of this man who, at a young age, was captured by the king, who then took him away to get mutilated and become like this forgotten wastrel and circus act. But he somehow slips through that and finds a family of his own and grows up to be this successful entertainer. But he is made to have a rictus grin, and he does not feel the way that he looks on the outside. And there's these complex feelings. Can he feel love? Is he more than just the man who laughs? And as mentioned, there's some royal affair intrigues and backstabbing, some political maneuverings and romance and tragedy. This is a film that is just under 2 hours long, but if it was made today, it would be made by India and it would be 3 hours long, and it would have musical numbers, because it has everything. This film has a lot in there, but the thing that I want to praise about it is maybe the India part that I just said is a bit too extreme, because what this does have is tonal consistency. This movie is a bit of a downbeat film. It has some hope. It has some good stuff. The ending won't get into right away, but there's something there. But the movie, as you can tell by the description, has a lot of sorrow in there. The title is a little bit of ironic, but yes.
And people who are fans of the book, apparently this one's more happy.
I could believe it. But now we are going to get into it properly, so people make sure to give it a watch, because we're going to get into the spoilers of it all. My history with this is I've been aware of it. It's not one that I've ever gotten the chance to partake in and watch. It's just one of those films that if you're interested in film history or the history of certain characters in movies or the relationship of actors of certain entertainment industries, specifically German actors, you see how this pops up in the timeline of all of this stuff. But The Man Who Laughs has just been one that I've never gotten around to. I've seen the images, I've seen certain scenes of it, but I've never seen it in its full context. And so that's why, even knowing if this was a proper German expressionist film, I didn't know. I just looked and assumed, of course it is. But then you look into it, it's not as clear cut as that. I was mainly drawn to this because of the lead actor. He is he was a very interesting person. He is someone that is synonymous with film itself. He was the creation in the silent film, German expressionist film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where he plays a very iconic role in that. Like, he is very physical, he has this great look, and like with The Man Who Laughs, plays a very tragic figure, this creature that you can't help but feel for because they did not have a choice in what they're doing. And then, the actor would go on to work in Hollywood for only a couple of years because he passed away from a heart attack at 50. So he was only in America for a little while. But he was the lead villain Nazi in Casablanca. That was like his second last movie role.
Okay.
And so he forever is cemented as like someone of importance in film history, both from the country he was from and from the Hollywood industry. So from silent to talkies, he's in 2 to 3 major tentpole movies where it's like, if you know your film history and if you care about that stuff, Conrad Veidt, the actor, is someone of importance. And so I wanted to see The Man Who Laughs because it's another one that is a part of this ilk of his career in which he's remembered very fondly for this. It's one of those things that I'm sure you'll talk about it. You've already mentioned Da Joker Baby, where like that part of the tapestry of this film is important as well. But again, comes back to this lead actor who, again, amazing life, amazing career. But I wanted to just come back and see his work because I've seen Casablanca multitudes of times. And I saw the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari when we studied it and watched it at university. But The Man Who Laughs was one in which I wanted to see because just look at it. Just any image you see of this movie is alluring, or at least it was to myself. So you weren't familiar with this at all?
No, I wasn't.
Even when you watched it and bits of it started to unfold, none of it was like, oh, I'm aware of this or anything?
No, not really. I really was just mainly thinking of the Elephant Man throughout because it's got a similar kind of setup. It even has like, the circus freaks angle of, this is a person who, not born in this case, but who has a disfigurement that people find unusual and that's exploited in some way.
There's the film Freaks as well that the Duchess, I do believe, of this movie, the actress, was in. So that's kind of another connection as well to this idea. But what did you feel about the movie? I mean, you walked in not knowing too much. I gave some little pieces at the end of last episode, but even then, still pretty vague. What did you feel about The Man Who Laughs?
A bit of a mixed bag. You mentioned before that this is a film that kind of has everything. I kind of feel like it had a bit too much for me. Basically, all the stuff with the main character I really liked, and a lot of the kind of royal intrigue stuff, not as much. It was kind of just getting in the way of, okay, let's get back to our main guy, because, everything I really liked about this film was basically in his performance and how he interacted with other characters. He's got the permanent smile on his face, and he's able to emote around that really effectively and really emotionally.
What did you feel about this being the first silent movie we've done? I imagine you aren't just sitting down watching silent movies all the time. There's a different style to that.
Yeah,
a different way of communicating across not just dialogue, but these emotions. And for some people, it's a turn off, like, oh, no, thank you. Or it can be not sustainable for what is nearly 2 hours here.
Yeah, the runtime did kind of throw me off at first, but it went by relatively all right. It felt, relatively 90 minutes ish. I haven't seen too many. I was actually thinking during, like, what have I seen? I could only really think of, like, Nosferatu and the aforementioned Dr. Caligari thing in university, which a couple of episodes ago I talked about how I was doomed to not enjoy that session because it was a 9-hour day and ending on that. I still have to get over like negative connotations in my head to German expressionism. I need to give it a proper chance. So that was also another thing walking into this. It's like, oh, German expressionism. Am I ready for this? Um, but what did I feel about it was the question?
Yeah, about the
Oh,
watching a
silent movies,
silent
yes.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, especially since last year we did Babylon, that kind of, brought the whole silent era into my head and thinking about the transition to the talkies. It did kind of open me up to like, okay, let's actually see what, a real American one is like. Because I guess I haven't seen a silent American film other than Silent Movie, which is a parody from the 60s or
You've
70s.
never watched a Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, I have watched Charlie Chaplin, but I think they all had voice acting, like Great Dictator and
Yeah,
Modern
that's a
Times
talkie,
from the
yeah.
same class was kind of like a parody of the transition.
Yeah, yeah.
But actual Charlie Chaplin, just like shorts, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen a full one that's all silent.
Nice.
But yeah, it took me a few minutes to acclimatize, but I think like the first line that popped up, like I didn't read the last two words. I'm like, oh no, I have to hurry up, but I never had an issue.
No.
So I just ended up reading quickly and being like, oh, I shouldn't
Yeah.
be panicking. But no, it was a good experience. I really enjoyed the musical soundscape. Like obviously I've heard that homaged in many things that are homaging silent films, but actually watching a full movie with it was really effective. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed the movie very much. I also agree that it strays from the path of what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the story of this man who wants to connect with other aspects of his humanity, but the society around him and he himself feels like he has to be the creature. He has to be the performer, the freak, the man who laughs. I didn't mind the royal palace intrigue stuff as much in the first half.
Yes.
And also here's the thing that makes it awkward as well. I didn't like I got tired of it, but also my favorite character was involved in it, which is the Duchess. I loved her. I thought that performance was spectacular. It was I just want to emphasize for anyone who has not watched this movie, 1928. Okay, this is black and white. We've got the silent. We've got the interstitials with the dialogue and this and that. This movie's horny. Like, the Duchess is horny. The way that they shoot her, and the people looking at her through a keyhole, and like the way she displays herself, even to today's standards of cinema, horny, very sexy. Like, I was actually confronted by that because the way she's presented herself many times in this movie, I was like, oh boy. You talked about Babylon just a moment ago. Stuff like that would be like, oh, they would do that in Babylon, but it would be more like overt nudity. But like, the amount of body that we see of this Duchess, but not even that. The way that the actress carried herself was just this embodiment of lust and exuberance and decadence, and she was so fun to me. So that's why I have this kind of weird wrestling match with the movie, because I love all the stuff about the titular character, but also the bits of the palace royal affair intrigue stuff I also really did love. Like, I loved her character. I just kind of wish it was mainly like, and I think it's unfair because you and I both can't help but think of The Elephant Man, David Lynch's film.
I was thinking that, yeah. I kind of wish I watched this first.
This came first, and I couldn't help but compare her to a much more arched version of the actress character in The Elephant Man, the one who's like the stage performer that wants to meet John Merrick, and is she actually friends with him, or is she using him? And in the end, it kind of feels like they actually did have a connection and bond, but it's kind of iffy. She kind of has that, but it's much more, she's not on the up and up.
Yeah.
But there's some amazing cinematography in this movie. There's this absolutely dazzling sequence where we have to wait till 48 minutes into the movie to see his performance. Like the Laughing Man's circus act fully. We get little teasers, little bits, but mainly we don't see his show, like the big
Mm-hmm.
show. And when we finally get it, it's like he opens a curtain and he sticks his head out, and we get like these iconic sequences. If you've seen any promotional material for this movie, any images online, it's all from that moment. Where he has the white makeup on his face and the big grin, and he sees this Duchess lady at the back of the auditorium,
In
and then
the box on the
in the
top,
box in the
yeah.
seat, and you see like from his point of view, and it just becomes like this weird kind of wavy thing as his eyes are tearing up and is filling with like the tears, and it's very surreal, but like that dazzling stuff. Like this movie has striking visuals throughout, but yeah, I also acclimatized to the silent moviness of it all because I haven't watched too many, and the ones I have watched have been comedies, which is very different because you're
Mm.
just relying on physical comedy. Like I've watched silent movies that are from the 50s and 60s because they're just comedies. They're like, I'm doing slapstick comedy. That's very different to sitting down to watch a grounded drama, period piece grounded drama that's nearly 2 hours long. That's very different. And so I had to kind of get used to that.
Yeah.
Or it's very different to say watching Metropolis, which is like a sci-fi epic that's using its visuals to tell stories of allegory. This has characters, this has plot, this has themes, this has messages, things that we see with most movies, obviously. I'm not disregarding like Metropolis having those, but like Metropolis is not about characters. It's not about theme, like it's about theme and message. And they're using the visual medium to tell those stories. So I had to get used to that aspect of seeing it portrayed in a silent movie way. But
Mm.
after 10 minutes, I got it. I was like, okay, I'm in the rhythm of this. I'm really just chewing on it now.
Yeah, the only times it still threw me off were when you were reading a letter and it had like, the handwriting. It's like, okay, how do I read this word? And like, every other word was like an old word or like a German word, like
Yeah.
I forget, but it's like their word for like jester or something. Every time I saw that, I'm like,
Mm.
did I read that right?
And then there's as I read the trivia, there's some words that the Victor Hugo novel just made up, and they use that in this, like the name of the people that did the surgical
Yeah,
alterations
yeah.
of our main character. That's just a thing that Victor Hugo just made up.
Oh, interesting. Because I didn't read too much trivia about this film. I mostly scrolled like the Wikipedia page, and a lot of those terms actually had
Mhm.
Wikipedia pages. So I just assumed that those were like I think that one did too.
Yeah, probably because now it's had cultural significance. But like,
Okay,
think about it. There's so many things where certain phrases and words came from fiction.
yeah, that's true. I guess.
So, or it's a play on certain things, like an amalgamation or like a twist on this. So, yeah, it's
Oh, you know what? I do remember reading the first line of that Wikipedia page, and it did say it's from folklore. So
hmm
there you go.
there's a very folklorian aspect to this as well. This film, it's set in the 17th century.
Yeah, it's a period piece from a year that is itself a period to us.
And it's set in England. And we get like the weird political royal affair stuff to it, where it's like, oh, we're kicking out all of these Spanish people and all of these near
Mm.
do wells who don't line up with the cultural values, all these freakish performers, and if you cross us, we cross you real good.
Yeah,
And
some of those terms had a very Spanish sound to them. Like one of them
Mhm.
ended with chicos. I think it's the
Mhm.
thing, the people that have the
Yeah,
smiles.
yeah, exactly. So, um, but what are some things that you want to discuss about The Man Who Laughs? There's many things here, both within the movie and outside of the movie.
Hmm. I agree with you that that Duchess character was pretty great. It also helps that a lot of her most iconic scenes were with our main character, so I almost think of her as being more of a like his world thing rather than like the political, the royal intrigue world.
Interesting. I think of her with the jester. He had a lot of moments with
Yeah,
her.
that's true. It's kind of like the two halves, like her
Mhm.
with him, her with him.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think I agree with you also that like in the first half it didn't bother me as much, but by the second half, like there's a period of time where we just don't really see our main character. It's like when he's been arrested, which I didn't even know what he was arrested for.
Just being him.
Yeah, there was no explanation given. Um, and so that kind of threw me off as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I I don't know because the film itself, I think it's trying to play it like there is no main character. I think it's just wanting
Mm,
to tell a story because even in the beginning, when we see him as a young boy, it's not as if the film is from his point of view, from his perspective. It's more from an outside look.
yeah.
So I kind of look at
I
the
guess
film
he's more
taking
of a
it as that.
poster boy. Yeah.
Yeah, the film is obviously empathetic towards him. This is a film that you would not be surprised to hear is one of Guillermo del Toro's favorite movies because it is a story about the outsiders being humanized. In this case, a freak, a monstrosity. And Guillermo del Toro, he loves making monsters the heroes, or he loves looking at the disenfranchised and making them, and I can definitely see that being an influence here, but you can't help but want more time spent with this character because Conrad Veidt is just so magnetic of a screen presence. And you can see why he was one of the guys in German cinema. Like when it came to the cinema, specifically the silent era, he didn't get to last too long in the talkies because he was very anti Nazi, which didn't work out. Well, it worked out real well for him because he left, but did not work out well with his film career there. As Goebbels himself said, he will not have one.
Okay. If Goebbels says so, then yeah.
If Goebbels says it himself, yeah, yeah. But you just can't help but be drawn in because it's those eyes. It's those eyes. They do all of the work. At first, you can't help but look at the teeth and the mouth and the big
Mm,
grin and the makeup and all of that. But like with the actual format of this being a silent, you get acclimatized to it. You go, okay, this is what he looks like. This is what he's doing. But what else is he? Who else? Who is this character? And it's all, it sounds obvious, but it's all within those big eyes of his. There's
yeah.
so much just
I
expressed
mean, that's
through that.
the eyes are always the thing you talk about when it comes to the concept of smiling itself. Like, oh, he's putting on a fake smile. Look at his eyes. You
Mm,
cover their mouth, and it's like, oh, they're not smiling. And so I'd say it's the eyes and also the cheeks. It's like
mm,
the cheeks are a really big part of it. If they're raised, then it's like, oh, they're really happy.
hmm And he covers his mouth as a sign to others to show what he's actually feeling
Yeah,
or
yeah,
to
yeah.
show himself.
The actor and the filmmaker himself, they get it. They get what they're doing. They have him with this permanent smile. They make you look at his eyes to see what he's really feeling in the moment. Sometimes they cover the mouth so that he does just look like a, regular if bottom half veiled person, and you see, the true emotions from that top half of his head.
And it's a deeply upsetting movie. Even almost 100 years later,
We're getting there. 97.
this film is still very resonant emotionally. I got my heartstrings pulled at times with this. There's just stretches of this character's life or his relationship with his family or to the Duchess where I just wanted things to work out for him. I wanted him to feel content in life, but also there's this thing too of it's a period piece itself. It's set in the 17th century and it's using that and the whole him being a circus performer or like his own one man show performer and how people individually can care. We see that like with his own family, like the individuals feel things for him, but masses and society are indifferent, apathetic, or outright hostile. They're transactional, they dehumanize him. And you don't need that to be just a 17th century thing. That's something that we still see now. We still see that now with many, 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 many types of people. And that's a part of why this film feels timeless, even though it feels not only of its time, but also because it's a period piece, feels like hundreds of years ago. And it has that fairy tale folklore type of feeling to it. But why fairy tales and folklores and movies from yesteryear can still ripple out and have so much effect and context is what is their messaging, their themes? What is the thing that strikes a chord? And I think that's the thing that makes it strike a chord is the fact that society can still be so dehumanizing to individuals.
Mm. Yeah, a lot. There's a lot of like mob mentality stuff going on. Like, oh, the people jeering at him, like ha 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 ha, people laughing at him. The whole climax of the film's like a mob chasing him. It was reminding me again of the Elephant Man, where yeah, he's also victim of mob mentality there. In that film, you have the grand moment near the end where he stands up to them and makes them, question like, what are we doing? Are we the real monsters in a way? This film, not so much. It has a different sort of vibe going on.
I like its difference.
Yeah, I do too. You mentioned before that this is one of the first silent films you've watched where it's like a straight drama, not really a
Mm-hmm.
comedy. And I was about to respond to that by saying like, yeah, it's probably the first, straightforward, naturalistic one. But even thinking that, maybe it is literally true, but it does have this weird ethereal vibe going for it.
I feel a part of it is his look.
Mm.
It's so otherworldly, but it's still grounded in something. It's, I, okay, so I read the trivia and it says it's prosthetics. It's these pair of dentures in his mouth that hook with metal hooks that pull his cheeks back. So the actor
Okay.
could not talk, which is good because it's this film where he can't talk.
I was thinking on the way here, like, oh, was he just like groaning in pain the whole time or something?
Didn't talk about any physical discomfort in that way, but he could not talk.
Mhm.
And the only time he didn't wear them was when he had to make out with the Duchess, because obviously he has to be able to do that
Mhm.
in that scene. But there's something about these dentures, these prosthetics, these things where I'm looking at it and I don't even think about it. I'm not thinking about, these are things they put in his mouth that make him look crazy or like
Mm.
a monster or whatever, which some films even nowadays struggle to capture that. Talking about Lynch, David Lynch, it actually made me think of Willem Dafoe in Wild at Heart, where he has these
Yeah.
dentures in his mouth and it gives him a completely different feel. And that it's much more lecherous and gross, and he just oozes this disgusting
Yeah,
thing.
he's very sleazy.
But The Man Who Laughs plays on that. It plays on, you look at this smile and you can't help but think of deranged. You can't help but think of psychotic. You can't help but think of that because it's so rictus of a grin. It's not just a casual smile.
It's very exaggerated. Like when you see, the clown makeup or like Joker stuff and they've got like the crazy big smile, which you can maybe get away with either makeup or being in like an animated medium. It's like that, but this is live action. Like you're looking at a real person.
And it's yet it doesn't push too far into being too cartoonish where I'm like giggling at how silly it is. It's like it is grotesque, but he as a performer has to bring the person to life that's behind that smile, and that's what the film is challenging you with, of just like, look at this person that could be a villain,
Mm.
a forgotten universal monster. Like,
Yeah.
no, he is a victim himself of the
Yeah.
highborn.
If you gave him like a kind of swirly mustache, he could also be like a, like scam artist or
Yeah.
something in like a cartoon.
Yeah, and he works in that world. We see those characters about, like the guy with the eye patch who was wanting to buy him, but he was actually like a cohort of the royals. Like, it's this whole intricate web. But the rest of the film has merits. Like, but it's hard not to be drawn to this lead performance because of the look, the things he does as an actor, the character himself, because you root for him. But what did you feel about his found family, I guess? The person that let him in from the cold, and
The philosopher guy.
his both sister slash love interest type thing, because he find like a main character when a little boy gets kicked out into the snow and he finds a baby in the arms of its mother and he brings her and she's blind.
Yep, and he finds this old philosopher man who takes them in, and then it cuts to their adulthood, and they've
Don't
had
forget the dog.
Yes, and the dog, who has a name that I forget what it is, but it was something normal.
Do you actually forget what it
No,
was?
I remember what it is. I saw it in the opening credits, like, oh, Homo the wolf. There's one cutaway where what do you call the when it shows you the dialogue? You said it
The
before.
interstitials.
Yeah, there's one interstitial where it's just Homo exclamation mark.
Homo, I'm home. So yeah, but you were saying there are these characters.
Yes, I did like the found family aspect. I think it took me a while to get what they were doing with the father figure because it did kind of feel at first like, oh, is he exploiting him? Because he's like doing a show and I didn't know if it was like a freak show or not, but then you learn, okay, no, they're performers.
Hmm.
And he's a genuinely loving father figure. And yeah, his relationship with them was very sweet.
I thought the same. He at the beginning seemed a little manic. He sees this child, he lets him in, that's nice, but there's these side eye glances, and then when he sees that there's a baby, he's like, "There's two of you?" Like that's a and he's looking over the child, this baby, and he's like looking at her with this kind of perplexed, like, how do you read his gaze at this child? And then he sees that she's blind, and then it's like, oh, this is going to be a hassle. Like, he at the beginning seemed perhaps like, oh, he'll do this begrudgingly. And then we cut forward and he's traveling around, and it does make you think, oh, is this an exploitation? Is he going to just milk them? But you kind of warm to it because in the world that they live in, what else can they do? When you meet this philosopher father, he's in basically the ruins of a house in the middle of a snowstorm. It's not like he's well off. Like,
Yeah, and he's
these
living
are
in a land that's just like ousted certain people who create these kinds of people that are being looked down on.
and the film is aware, as was other films of its time, like I mentioned, Freaks, the movie, of historically speaking, people with physical disabilities or mutilations, or the case like this movie, there's limitations of what they can do
Mm.
in the world, like because it's so against them. So yeah, he's going to use them as a performer because that is what they can do. But I think there's something powerful about how we don't see much of this performance. Like, we don't see much of the man who laughs performance. Like, for the first 40-50 minutes of the movie, we just keep seeing them arrive to a town, to people cheering, and then leave the town. We don't
Mm.
we don't get much. Like, we see them getting ready for things or just wrapping up things, but we
Yeah,
don't see much because it's
and we
more
hear
about their relationships in between those performances.
yeah, we hear the locals being hyped like, oh yeah, the crazy the man who laughs, I think was his
Yep.
title. Yeah.
Yeah. But then what we really see is how the man who laughs, our titular character, how he is when he's with the blind sister, or how he is with the father before a show, after a show, or when they're traveling to a show. There's this temptation moment for the father where the eye patch man is like asking how much, are you going to be at this fair?
Mm.
And the performance from the dad, he's so jovial during all of it that you're like, oh, is he naive about what's going on? But then he says he knows what this is all about and that he's not interested. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that performance. It was the right level of appropriate for a silent movie, but I actually thought he was kind of dialed down a bit compared to some of the other actors in terms of being big for the camera.
Mm.
Because what did you think about the acting style of just silent movie acting style in general? Like, obviously we love Conrad Veidt. He has to be heightened because he has the thing in his mouth, so you are going to work with what you've got. But all of these other people, big or small, there is that degrees of how many people are doing the big acting and the somewhat appropriate acting for silent movies, and then there's those ones who are hey, they're actually kind of dialed down a bit.
Yeah, again, that was another thing walking into this, being interested in seeing how it's done, and yeah, it honestly just kind of reminded me a lot of we have drama backgrounds. And I think like every single year of drama work we've ever done, there was some sort of emphasis on mime, acting without making any sounds, no speaking. And it is all based around being big enough for your audience to see what you're doing. And on a stage level, that requires, very grand movement so that all the people in the back can see. But here with silent films, it is a film medium, a moving picture medium, so the cameras are pretty close. So you have this interesting variation where, yeah, some characters who are like grander in their characterization do act a bit bigger, but then the ones who are more, you know, toned down, they can be a bit more subtle because the camera's right there.
The film starts off with the king and his jester, and they are very much playing it like a pantomime. But that fades away, or it kind of fine tunes itself, because that's the prologue. That's the here's us setting up the stage, and so they kind of feel like a stage show themselves.
Yeah, and they contrast the guy that they kill.
Yeah, exactly. He's much more dialed in. But then when we see the jester throughout the movie, his performance isn't as over the top as it was in that prologue. Like, it's still heightened because he's playing the villain, but it's dialed into a different frequency than it was in the prologue, where
leaning more into like a Jafari kind of like, schemer.
Yeah. I thought he was a great character, the jester. He was just a piece of I love that the jester's the villain, by the way. Like, again, another performer. Like, the jester is a performer, and he is a villain against another performer. But it's not played as, like, the envy of performers. It is played like, this jester is like, I'm actually the guy ruling the kingdom, by the way.
Yeah,
people underestimate my intellect.
He's an evil chancellor archetype, but he's the jester.
Yeah. But there is something palpable about how there are these two performers, and then eventually they are competing against each other in the royal court. And people are either they are using them or they are using other people. And to see, our main guy, what was his actual name again? It was like
Gain Lane or something like that.
Like Gwynplaine or something.
Yeah,
but
so many of the words in this film are like that long, but I can't think of a single one.
When we got to see him in like the aristocratic royalty clothing, and just how that in itself felt like a perversion of the natural way of things. But then it's like, well, no, we are just saying that because he looks like a circus performer, like
Gwynplaine.
But yeah, and then the blind sister / love interest. Again, when we say sister, found family type deal. What did you feel about her? Because she's the girl in the movie, and she's also the contrast to the Duchess. Both of them are like the blonde ladies who he is conflicted about romantically. Or at least personally.
She's the good man to her Tornado Lou.
Mm-hmm.
To use a different black and white sort of ish film reference.
Yeah.
Lemonade Joe. I again, her relationship with main guy, very sweet, and I liked how she played into the innocent archetype. I guess there was an element of like, okay, I can see her eyes moving a little bit. That's not really, what blind people do, but
blind people's eyes move.
They can move, but it looked like hers were purposeful, like, oh, I'm looking for where I'm going next.
Well, she describes that she can see things, that she sees him as a shaft of light, and that she can see some minor shapes.
Oh, never mind what I said then.
Like, that was a moment that is like, she is gravitated towards him because she can see his shape, and that she describes him as like a shaft in the light. So she does have some vision. Like, she's blind, but she's vision impaired is what we would say now. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that then. Then yeah, forget that. But no, they were very sweet. I enjoyed how, kind of in separate scenes, but they both had a line in reference to God and what God has made them. But they were both like iconic lines for them. Like, she had, God made me blind so that I could see the real you. And he had like, oh, God made me a man, not one of these other things. And I feel that those are kind of like the mission statements behind the characters, and that the whole performances lend themselves to that effect.
I was when viewing this, I had it on the TV. It looks great. The film is just it uses the contrasts, the lights, the shadows
Hmm.
to really capture the mood. And it is grand in scale. Like you have these big sets and people in these outfits and horses. It feels epic.
Yeah, apparently when the film came out, that was a point of criticism because it didn't look British.
Oh yeah.
Like
I
this
could see
clearly
that.
looks German, but I don't know. From my eyes, my 2025 eyes, like that didn't register to me.
It was fine. It was the 17th century. I was
Yeah.
okay with it. But there's just a lot of ornate things here to just appreciate in terms of the craftsmanship of it all. But when it came to how does this come to a head? Obviously things have to turn to a sour degree because our main character is an outsider, he's an outcast. But for the majority of the film, he has the people's attention because he's a successful performer. Then he becomes a member of the royal court, and you're like, waiting. How is this going to turn bad? And it does. Boy, does it turn bad. And it almost becomes like a monster movie where he's like running around and people like horrified and he's like crawling up and he's trying to save this person, but people misinterpreting it. And I was waiting for it to have I know it's a movie from an older time where they usually had happy endings, but I was actually waiting for it to have a sad ending. I was like, okay, this is going to
Was that
be a
hold on?
sad ending.
Was that also the case in like the 20s? I tend to
Okay.
okay. I mostly associate that to like 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not all, but like I associate, all this cinema as like again, spoilers, they go off into the sunset in this movie.
Yeah.
So I was not expecting that, but when it did happen, I liked it. I was moved by it, but I was moved particularly because he does not have the Elephant Man speech. He does not have the big "How dare you? I'm a human being."
Oh yeah, yeah. He escapes the mob.
But even throughout the movie, he never has those because his character is so introverted.
Hmm.
He's not like John Merrick. Where John Merrick, when you watch The Elephant Man, once he opens up, he's very talkative and he wants to engage. Not here. That's not what this movie is about. That's not what this character is about.
No, no,
He
no.
just wants to know who he himself is. That's all he wants. He wants to have a relationship and blah blah blah. But a part of being able to form connections with his father, with his romantic interest, with the Duchess, with the Roy, he just needs to know who he is because when he looks in the mirror, he can't help but see that smile. He can't help but see the performance. He can't
Yeah.
help but see nothing but who he is. So that's where it all comes back to. So he personally does not need to have
I
the
am not an animal.
I'm not an animal
I'm a
moment.
human being.
He just needs to have the act of embracing who he is and having an actual real smile at the end. Like that's the thing that got me was the smile at the end, even though he's still got the prosthetics, it's a real smile for once from him in the movie. Like every other moment, it's enforced upon him, but at the end when he's embracing and he's got these tears, it's real.
Yeah.
He's actually happy.
I should clarify, he does have that line about, God made me a human, or God made me a man, but that isn't like the, end point of his discrimination or anything like that. Like, he gets chased by the mob right after, basically.
And that's him saying it for himself.
Yeah.
That's it. He's not having to prove, he's just having to prove himself to himself, which I think is something that we can all relate to and connect with in some way.
Yep. Earlier, when I was looking up his name, I was surprised by something I didn't notice. Apparently, the act Conrad Veidt also played his father in that opening scene, the serious guy.
Yeah, I thought that was him because of those eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't familiar with him, so I wasn't thinking at the time. But like, just thinking back, like I even said just before, like, oh yeah, and that other guy who was like serious and not playing it up, like two sides of the same actor in the same film.
Is there anything else you want to say about the man who laughs?
I really don't think I have too much else. Yeah, I was really enamored by this main character and, all the relationships he had, his struggle. And the rest of the film was, yeah, fine for me, but it was, yeah, that was the main thing that I walked away with.
Let's talk about the production and the outside. Let's actually directly talk about the Joker baby.
Okay.
Because we mentioned it offhandedly at the start of this, but the film lives on because apparently this was one of the inspirations for the DC character, the Joker.
Mm. Yeah,
Which, boy, could you see?
it was one. It's actually one of those things where I read about that when I was scrolling through the Wikipedia page after I watched the film. Like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? Like,
Even the hair.
I was really close earlier in the film when he's still a child. When his soon to be, father figure tells him stop laughing. I was thinking specifically of like the Joaquin Phoenix one because his whole thing in that is like he has an involuntary laugh. But that was where my thoughts of the Joker ended. I watched the whole film. I didn't even think of like the smile being the inspiration for the physicality
and
of
the
the
white
Joker
skin, yeah.
and the pale skin. Yeah, it didn't cross my mind until after I was done.
Even the hairline is very Joker. It's
Yeah.
actually
It's beating me over the head, and I missed it.
but you read that and you go, oh, okay. Then you watch the movie, and he again. It's just the look.
Yeah.
Nothing of the character is like the Joker.
He's
It's
He's not a
visual,
monster. He's a genuinely beautiful soul.
and he's sad. The Joker could be sad too, right? But this smile, all of that, and that is cool to know. In terms of like, if people like myself, I'm always fascinated by where things come from. What are the things that connect to other things? Hence, I love watching things and going, oh, I know that actor from this thing, and they have this thing that gave them this role, and that role. That's my bread and butter. So this is a movie that contributes to my enjoyment.
Very
often,
very often at the end of Pictures Powwow episodes that are Bartek picks, Ryan will give his film, and then he'll tell me like, oh, you might notice an element from this that is prevalent in future media, and I think you did that last episode.
Yeah. Conrad Veidt, we've talked about him a lot. Other actors in this, interesting figures. So, the actress who played the blind girl, she didn't do too much. She actually lived quite a interesting and
Mary Philbin,
somewhat sad life. She was a good Irish girl, good religious girl, and she was engaged to one of the movie producers on this.
Okay,
but she could not marry him because her parents said no because he was Jewish. And so she let it go, and she never married and never had kids, and she lived to look after her parents. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is so sad. Like her career ended, fairly soon after this movie. And it's just like, oh, and apparently they both loved each other until they both were dead, even though he went on and got married and all that. He still had her love letters. And it's just so like, oh,
it sounds
man,
like a movie.
That's so, yeah, exactly. Read that. And it's just a lot of allotness. And Conrad Veidt hated the Nazis so much. Boy, Bartek, he hated them so much. He pissed off the Nazis so much. He pissed off every German actor because he was so vocal about, if you side with the Nazis, you're a traitor. And it made me think about when we did M, which this also made me think about a lot because this is contemporary to it. Or just about. But that thing of like, Conrad Veidt was just like, he was one of the number one actors. He was the big stage actor of the time, and it was like, well, you're gonna join in on this whole Nazi thing, right? He's like, no, fuck them, they suck. I'm married to a Jewish woman, fuck them. And he had to do a questionnaire, and it was a questionnaire the Nazis put in for anyone in the entertainment industry where you had to answer what your race was. He put Jewish. He wasn't Jewish himself, but he put that there because he was like, fuck them. Fuck them. I'm Jewish in the way that I'm married to my wife, and I love my wife, and she's Jewish. I don't love the Nazis. Screw them. Which basically got him blacklisted from the industry.
Yeah, no shit.
And he just kept talking shit about the Nazis and convincing all of his peers to not join the Nazis. And anyone who did, he would just, go on record and say like they're the worst, we shouldn't trust them, all of that. To the point where the Nazis were going to assassinate him, they sent the death squad out, and he heard about it, and he just went, okay, I'm leaving. I'll go to America and make movies where I play Nazis. But specifically, they're always evil. I'll never accept a role if it's a sympathetic portrayal of the Nazis. And so he's in Casablanca as the Nazi.
He never got to work with Mel Brooks.
No, because he died in 1943.
Yeah.
But he was playing golf and had a heart attack. But his physician was one of the people he was playing with, so there you go. But interesting guy. Like, I could keep rattling off all of this stuff about him because he's just one of those people you read more and more and more about, and you're like, yeah, he's seminal. He had like 116 things on IMDb.
Yeah, that's seminal enough.
Think about it. He had like, film industry wise, he was like there from the start. Like, think about
Silent Era.
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was quite some time earlier.
That was 1920 on the dot, I think.
Yeah. So busy man. But yeah, this is a film worth checking out, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to be able to watch this more easily now. Like, if we did this a year or two ago, we would have had to track it down a bit more than what we have now, because now it's reached that point where it's like, no, it's public domain, baby.
I was reading the YouTube comments under the one that I watched, and one of them said, yes, I knew if I waited long enough, I'd get to watch it for free.
Yep.
And someone commented like, yeah, I only have to wait 100 years, huh?
Oh, man. But yeah, worth it. It's not perfect.
No, definitely not.
But it's a film that I say this, I do not want to ever see a remake of this. Don't you fucking dare. Leave it as is. This is what it needs to be. I don't need to see fucking Todd Phillips, The Man Who Laughs, starring Joaquin Phoenix. I don't need to see that. This is it. You know, this is all I need of this.
Certainly not one that wants to replace this, no.
No. There's something special about movies that... Obviously, this has its impact, but there's something special about movies that don't quite reach the echelon for yourself, but like it's got a lot of things in it that work.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's an adaptation of a novel kind of gives it free rein to have another go at it, but yeah, just not trying to remake specifically this version of it. Yeah, leave this one alone.
Who would you put as The Man Who Laughs if you had to pick an actor today? Who would you put in this spot? I know.
Salman Khan.
Would you?
No.
Irfan would have been the better one.
Maybe, yeah. He'd look very strange with like an exaggerated smile, wouldn't he?
He would. Could you imagine Irfan? He would play this as he did. Fucking so stupid. I was gonna say. It's like Billu, but if Billu was a monster with a rictus grin, but he was still a barber that people respected.
A monster barber.
A monster barber. Oh yeah, and by the way,
what about that guy then?
Tim Burton. He's definitely watched this movie before. We didn't mention the obvious.
I was thinking Johnny Depp, but yeah, Tim Burton.
Tim Burton. He loves his German expressionist stuff. Maybe one day we will revisit the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because I remember my problem with that was the specific copy that we watched had an awful, now I mean truly awful musical score. Like, it was just this funky jazz, like weird saxophone. I always remember describing, there was a moment where it sounds like someone was killing the saxophone player and he had his last breath on the saxophone. It was really awful. And I remember saying that to our teacher, Leon, and he said, yeah, it's not the best one. And I'm just like, please show us the best one next time, because silent movies are a hurdle for young people. I've never had that hurdle with silent movies. I've always just been like, I don't know, I just accept like that's just that's what it is. Like,
yeah, there is the weird stigma for old, and I feel like I had it growing up, but at some point it went away.
Being a fan growing up of like some of my favorite movies, like Paleface with Bob Hope's one of my favorite movies. I loved that as a kid. So I think my parents just ingratiated me early on to accept old movies. But like I've mentioned him before, but we know a person who studied film and has been on this podcast who says they don't like watching black and white movies because they feel boring and they look old. Even new movies that are in black and white. And I'm just like, I can't be doing with that. I can't be doing with that. Like to me, I've never had that like oh, I can't watch a silent movie because it's old, or like, oh, who would want to watch a medium that we no longer use? Hey, there are still silent movies. I watched Hundreds of Beavers like recently. That was great. That's like, again, that's a comedy, but like that was great. The people like The Artist,
Yeah, they did.
where I was playing with silent movie tropes and stuff. I've never seen it since it first came out.
Yeah, I bought it on DVD not long after it came out, and I watched it once.
Did you know the director of The Artist did a French remake of One Cut of the Dead
When?
shortly after One Cut of the Dead, and it's not very good.
Okay. Listening people, One Cut of the Dead is a film we love dearly and don't want to spoil in the slightest. Just watch it.
Just watch it. All right. Now, Bartek, it is time for the listening people's recommendation.
That is correct, Ryan.
And I think it's time to go back to one of our favorite countries when it comes to movies.
Mm-hmm.
The former Czechoslovakia.
Okay. So it's going to be one of these ones.
I'm picking out of the list. We have quite a few, but I wanted the one with the funkiest poster.
Okay.
So so we are going to be talking about The Girl on a Broomstick, which is from 1972. And I do not know anything about it other than it has a funky poster of a woman, clearly a witch probably, on a broomstick. I have a copy of this. You gave me a copy of this.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to
where-
remember if this is the one that I had to watch like the opening scene like over and over and over and over again to make sure the subtitles were good or not. I think that one had Cinderella in the title, so maybe not.
Nope, but people, make sure to find a copy of this. This is available on YouTube as well, but I have not verified if it's worldwide available, because I know with some of these foreign films, they can be
Yeah.
region locked,
It's
but
weird.
I mean, they get region locked for us, so this one wasn't when I checked it earlier this week, but you never know. It could be. These are the things, like when we did Lemonade Joe, it was on YouTube, no longer on YouTube. Like, this is the thing about saying it's on YouTube, unless it is like a public domain thing. Do not rely on that always being there, because
Yeah, I remember when I gave that film to you, the one that we're about to do next week, I was looking for like half a dozen Czech films, and like maybe 4 of them were easy as piss to find. One of them was pretty difficult to find, and one of them I just could not find in this at all.
I like your take on piss easy being it was easy as piss to find. Like, I just love that.
I guess that is the saying, isn't it?
It's piss easy. It was easy as piss.
It was
right.
easy like the piss.
Well, everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us talk about The Man Who Laughs. I hope that we cover more silent movies on the pod. I must admit, I don't have a large roster of them in my, let's watch this, or even in my own personal, like, gotta watch. So, people, if you have silent movie recommendations, I'd love those too.
We are open to, wherever we can go. It's really the only limitation is, can we find the film?
That's it. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, under Spit and Polish Presents. You can also contact us directly. How can people do that, Bartek?
It's easy. Go to your email address, log in, and when you go to compose new email for the to thing, write spitandpolished@gmail.com. You can put in whatever you want in the subject and the body, but that's the email you need to know. spitandpolished@gmail.com.
You can follow us, share us around the place, rate and review the show. Very much appreciated. But until next time, remember to be kind to each other, or else Homo the dog will not be your friend.
The wolf.
The wolf. That wolf, how did its age work? Because it was old
Yeah.
when it attacked the little boy.
And it had the smile.
How was it still alive when he grew up to be like a 38-year-old man, or however old he's supposed to be?
Yeah, they didn't really tell us, did they?
It's kind of hard because you like look, let's be generous. Let's say 25-year-old. He is definitely in his 20s.
Yeah.
But
You want to know
yeah.
the biggest twist about Homo the wolf?
Mhm.
I googled it and went to images. Not as much as what I was expecting. Just kind of some general wolf stuff, a little bit of fur affinity stuff, and some of this film. Like, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying, I looked it up to see images of the character Homo the Wolf, but surprisingly it didn't get as much of that as I thought, and I was waiting for you to be like, I actually got gay porn, no, furry gay porn, you got to get it right. Well, by the way, to end this out on, Bartek, I've got some sad news. Zimbo the dog, who played Homo the Wolf,
Mm-hmm.
they're dead.
Yeah. I was thinking during this, like, oh, I'm going to beat Ryan to it and say, like, he's still alive, actually. But then Ryan, at the end, he did the thing he always does.
I haven't done it in a while.
True. You normally do it to guests, because it doesn't really work on me that much. And it's always funny when the guests hear it.
It's like when I say pride's a sin. It really throws people off.